Every industry or a job function or a career path has these different milestones.
If the culture is strong enough, then why should I be concerned about individual behavior?
Mid career crisis is when many of us have asked ourselves, but what if I don't want to be CXO?
Midlife crisis is also an extension of the mid career phase of life.
Which also was the other thing we were talking about as to what does ambition mean and look like today.
It takes something to do this for 10 years and then to start a second thing and then continue that for 5 years. Like, you're right, it is that you are ambitious, probably not in ways that were understood by an establishment of the past.
And that's when some of those existential questions start hitting you.
For every single human being who's paying attention comes a point in time where they're like, now what?
What do we mean when we say mid career? So, Hasita and I finally agreed that we are a podcast for mid career folks. But we disagreed on what mid career means, perhaps. So, is it, someone in their 40s who's thinking, okay, I probably have to be here for another 20 years doing what I do? Is it now that I put my hand up and say, I want to be CXO? Should I have already gotten there? What does mid career mean to me? What's next? Or in a world of multiple careers, for the new generations, is it about doing something for a certain period of time, gaining expertise, gaining confidence, and is the middle of that journey mid career? Let's unpack what this word means to each of us, why it's relevant, why it has so many hues, and why it's also important to recognize that maybe it's not the middle of something, but maybe it's a point where you can make a decision about where you want to go next. Maybe it's just a crossroad and not all downhill from there. Shall we talk more about what mid career means today?
Yes, as someone who's in the middle of many different careers, I'm either the best person to have this conversation with or the worst. We'll find out.
We'll find out. Hi, I'm Subha Chandrasekharan, leadership and career growth coach.
And I'm Hasita. I'm a brand consultant and co founder at Motley Crue, among other things.
Yes. So that was such a revelation, right? Like every time I said mid career, it was always in my mind about age, about tenure, vintage. Because it's so hardwired to think of career as linear, and that as you get senior you will move into a larger role. You'll maybe a larger organization or lead more people or at least face more complexity, have more decision making power and all of that. And at some point you say, okay, I do now want to definitely hit the accelerator and become CEO, become CXO, or I want to just do this but really, really well, perhaps, and
Yeah.
maybe in a different organization.
But I think that age, if I think about why is it that that demographic classification never came to mind for me, my partner is a CXO and in his 40s now, and he has been a CXO through his 30s as
Yeah,
well. So I
yeah,
don't think it ever struck me as something that you can or cannot do, or it's
correct.
something you get to, based on a certain amount of time that you've spent. And it's an industry that's still very linear. You
Mm,
have to put in the work to learn. There's a
mm,
lot of collaboration that you're figuring out as
mm,
you go along,
mm.
and then you come to a point where you feel like, okay, you're ready to solve all of these complexities, but still the age wasn't something
Correct,
that mattered
correct.
in that
Yeah.
context.
I think if I think back, maybe when the Swiggies and the Flipkarts kind of came into our worldview was when the 25-year-old was also a CEO,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Till then,
It wasn't a thing that
it
happened, and
wasn't a
therefore it
thing.
was very strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now you have to, and I think there's so much to worth, dive into your notion of mid career that, okay, I'm going to have multiple careers
Yeah,
and there's a mid in each one of them,
yeah,
which
yeah.
will come at different points in your life, right?
Yeah, and therefore I think, for context, I am in the middle of three different careers. Some probably a little more early rather than the middle, I would say. And I feel like it's more a qualitative classification to me than the number of years or the amount of time, because it's also about the kind of opportunities you've had to be able to get to where you are. It's about the sort of collaborators that you've been able to work with.
Mm,
And also, somewhere on some level, interestingly, the curiosity bit does come into the
mm,
picture for me
mm,
to say there's always something new to learn.
mm,
So, at what point do I feel like I have actually, there's an interesting analogy that you see in when you're doing a rescue diver course, where they say that you go from being individually focused to
mm,
outward focused,
mm,
and that is the transition that you're
mm,
making,
mm.
and I feel like that applies in this case as well,
Very
because there's
much.
so much of their individual skills which are now coming together, but then they also branch off into understanding the ecosystem, understanding the people, understanding the dynamics of supply and demand, understanding
Mm,
the systems, understanding logistics. So I think maybe that's an interesting way to sort of think of mid career, where your individual development in a certain field, I wouldn't say it's over, but it's gotten to a point where the focus is not internal anymore.
yeah,
And you're able
yeah.
to look out and say, okay, I operate in this world of possibilities.
Correct. Which is exactly what that middle manager concept is,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? That you were an individual contributor and hence thinking about yourself. And now you've reached a place where you're managing a team.
Hmm.
Even there, you were a manager. You
Hmm.
were
Hmm. Hmm.
managing their work, making sure they're efficient, productive, they're learning, they're taken care of, etc., etc. And then that switch when the ecosystem says, okay, now what is your value add?
Hmm. Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
So, how are you a leader now?
Hmm. Hmm.
What are you contributing to business strategy? What are you contributing to innovation? What are you contributing to the big picture?
Hmm.
And that's when some of those existential questions start hitting you.
For sure.
Like, you
Whose
know,
big picture is like the
yeah.
moment you said big picture, one of the first things that I mean, you can see why I have so many careers, because my immediate next thought was whose big picture,
And my thought is, isn't the big picture the same for everybody? You're all under that umbrella.
right? This is why it works.
Yeah, but that's where the middle manager who's being pushed to be a leader and also is being asked that, are you going to now step up?
Hmm. Hmm.
Are you going to put your hand up and say, I want to be CMO, CTO, CEO, etc.? There is a decision point
Hmm. Hmm.
somewhere in your near future,
Yeah.
because to even, I don't know, be uh, privileged enough to make that decision,
Hmm.
you have to put in the work. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
earn that uh,
Yeah.
position.
And it is my understanding that several large organizations have tracks and programs that lead up to that.
Correct.
But I also want to unpack that a little bit. Does everyone have that? Is that a possibility or an opportunity for everyone who's working, say, in a startup ecosystem, for
Hmm.
example?
Hmm.
If I have dreams and ambitions of reaching the top rung of the ladder, does that still is that a possibility for me in today's day and age? I'm just wondering. It feels a little shaky somehow, the ground.
Yeah, no, in today's organizations, heavily founder led,
Hmm.
right? An entire universe of organizations where, unless the founder or the founding team leaves, these very, very senior positions are not available,
Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Or what about startups who have said this will be our size and scale?
Hmm. But actually, I have seen some examples of founders who I think it's a combination of self awareness but also experience and success, frankly, right?
Yeah.
Where they've managed to grow into more of the chairperson role. And then a lot of companies under that holding ambit have come up, and there have been, of course, leaders who are
Hmm.
built, nurtured through that system. But I still feel like it's a little bit of an ambiguous use case. It's
Yeah.
not as clear as, okay, if I put in 10 years, if I do all the right things, then I'm on this track. And once I'm on that track, then the system is going to take over and
Correct.
support
Very
me in
much.
taking me
Very
forward.
much. Because the larger the organization, the more programs that you have saying, okay, now you'll do a leadership level one program.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
And then after a few years, you'll earn the leadership level two program.
Hmm.
And then, so it's telling you that you're climbing the
Yeah,
ladder
yeah, the signs
very
are all
clearly,
there.
very
Hmm,
clearly.
hmm.
And, but so many places now, there is no ladder.
Yeah.
And you have to be okay with that also. And so, what is mid career there? Is it even worth talking about?
Hmm, hmm. And again, also careers themselves being more freelance than not, right?
Mm,
That's another
mm,
use case where the individual onus is so high that unless, and I think it was my dad who said this to me at one point where I was feeling very burnt out. He said, you have to give yourself the promotion that you're seeking. And it's so true, especially for independent contributors, to
mm.
be able to say, okay, I have done X for
Yeah,
a period of time. But if I go forward, I need to go forward on my own. And I think that's another downside of this whole thing that we should talk about.
yeah, yeah. Even let's say, let's take your diving journey, right? There are these different certifications that
Hmm.
you're doing.
Hmm.
There are different skills that you're picking up. Um, what does it look like? Let's say that were to become your main career,
Hmm. Hmm.
if it's not today.
Hmm. I mean, which one isn't, right? Like, I think they all are in some
Yeah.
ways. But yeah, I see what you mean.
What would what would be the question you're asking yourself? Like, I your early career, your early career now.
Hmm.
What is mid career there? What is
Hmm.
seniority
Hmm.
there?
Hmm. Hmm.
Uh,
I think, in fact, funnily, I did have a conversation about this with three people just last week. And I think what stands out to me is still the certification, even your first professional certification, that focus, like we were discussing earlier, is still a little bit inward, right? Like,
mm,
I am becoming
mm,
this. But from this point forward, it's going to come down to how many different places have I contributed at, for one example, because each system is going to be different and they are going to take something from me and I'm going to take away
mm,
something from
mm,
them. And most importantly, that universe of collaborations is going to start happening, right? If
mm.
I mean, assuming I put in good work, 10 people are going to know that here's
Yeah,
somebody who knows how to do good work,
yeah.
number one. The second I see as speciality, right? Speciality in hospitality can mean speciality on the customer service end of things, which in my case would be probably learning a new language,
Mm,
getting very fluent and continuing to, push in that direction. It could also mean technical fluency. Like,
mm,
there's a lot of equipment that we work with,
mm,
which not a lot of people know how to service and maintain and
mm,
take care of. And frankly, that's something that's personally quite interesting to me as well.
mm.
So there is a pathway there where it will involve further education, further studies. And I think in tech, these roles where you went deep, the specialist roles were called architects, right?
Yeah,
And everybody else went on the management track in some
correct,
ways.
correct.
I think that applies here as well.
Mm,
It's just that the industry is very freelancer driven. It's very, very, the onus is on the individual. So
mm.
if you're trying to grow through the ranks, then there is a certain amount of leverage that if you already have, it'll just make your life a little
Yeah.
easier.
So in that way, then it's a lot like coaching. You'll do your ACC certification, you'll do your PCC certification, and then you'll do the third and final, which is an MCC. But at some point, you know, it starts very inward, right? A
Hmm.
lot of the how becoming a coach and being a coach is a very
Yeah,
inward
yeah.
journey, inward awareness, and all of that. But at some point, you start thinking about, now how do I want to mentor other coaches?
Hmm.
I will shift from just being their peer coach to also maybe mentoring them,
Yeah,
maybe training them,
yeah.
taking on what we call supervisory roles,
Hmm.
where I will help them see how they played out as a coach, or
Hmm.
help be their sounding board
Hmm.
for another coach. So that way, that also is very similar to the organization.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think in a way what we're saying is that every industry or a job function or a career path has these different milestones or
Hmm.
different, it starts with you, and
Hmm.
then you building expertise, and then seeing how you are impacting the world around you, the
Hmm.
ecosystem,
Yeah.
and then you're still taking the individual decision. Now in that, there's a skill and there's an expertise, but the business of diving and the
Hmm.
business of coaching,
Yeah, yeah,
where is that trajectory?
yeah.
Do I want to be CXO of
Yeah, yeah.
right?
In fact, I was just wondering that, which is to say, when you're in the middle of it, sometimes it's a lot of not knowing also, no?
Hmm.
And coming to terms with the not knowing of it. But even before that, I think understanding that that's where you are is such an important part of it, because otherwise, I feel like we'd all just be feeling very inadequate. We'd all just be feeling like we are somewhere in the middle of two places.
Uh,
We've left something long ago and then we've not arrived, and we can't see, where the arrival will potentially happen, more so in today's day and age.
yeah.
So when you're there, And it's interesting, right? Like a midlife crisis is also an extension of the mid career
Yeah,
phase
I
of
think the
life.
two are very closely
Yeah,
linked.
yeah. Well, I'm
Yeah,
not saying that there aren't other reasons and there,
correct.
but it's also a factor of awareness, right? Like you've done all this inward work. In some ways, it's great if you've hit a crisis point because it just means that you've been self aware enough to
Yeah,
get to the point where you can have the crisis and you
yeah,
can figure out
yeah.
what happens
No, and I
after that.
think your generation and the newer ones have figured out that, for example, that midlife crisis or mid-career crisis is when many of us have asked ourselves, but what if I don't want to be CXO? What if
Exactly.
I then what? Because this is the only thing I know.
Yeah.
But if you have these multiple careers to fall back on,
Hmm.
or you have the comfort in that discomfort.
That I think, because I was just thinking, even when you have multiple careers, there's a different kind of discomfort,
Hmm.
which is the discomfort of the imposter.
Hmm.
Because you're constantly
Yeah.
feeling like you're not giving your 100% to anything.
Yeah.
And it took me a long time, and I would say I'm somewhere towards the end of that journey. I'm still not arrived. But it took me a really long time to be okay with chipping away at small parts of different things on any given day, even when it made no sense. There was a
Yeah.
lot of why am I doing this? Why am I like this? Why can't I be, conventional? Why can't I? So to stop that narrative and say, I acknowledge the chipping versus
Yeah.
constantly beating myself up was a long journey in and of itself. So I think it all inflection points come with their own sort of.
And in all of this, we're not even counting our career as a parent and a partner, and like that.
Exactly,
That's
exactly.
where there's so much of the
And a
questioning and
caregiver and yeah,
discomfort,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Which also was the other thing we were talking about as to what does ambition mean and look like today.
Mhm.
Like when I say, is someone ambitious or am I ambitious? Um,
Are you ambitious?
So that's an interesting question. If I look at it from a very what we think is the lens of what I think other people think is the lens of ambition, I'm probably not, right, because I quit at a
Mhm.
peak
Mhm.
and decided to do like start from scratch in something else. I wasn't ambitious enough to give that career a longer shot and say, can I become, whatever it is, a director,
Mhm.
a managing director, whatever, climb that ladder.
Mhm.
So no, she was like, your skill set or your foundation was, let's say, as a banking executive or a banker, but you were not ambitious. You didn't continue on that path to the great successes that you probably could have had.
Mhm.
But if I am honest to myself, I think I've been extremely ambitious in the number of things I've tried to
Yeah,
do.
yeah. And I have known you. My first knowing of you was as the founder of Raincraft. And I
Hmm.
have always since thought of you as someone very ambitious. So to hear that, that wasn't the feedback from the other side is very strange to me, which comes back to that earlier question of whose vision, whose system,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Because it takes something to do this for 10 years and then to start a second thing and then continue that for 5 years. Like you're right, it is that you are ambitious, probably not in ways that were understood by an establishment of the past.
I think, yeah, I think by my peers, it's probably not ambition.
Hmm.
It is, choice, the luxury to exercise that choice. It is
Hmm.
privilege. It is, choosing not to run the
Hmm.
race,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But then what about us who created our own race? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
we created our own journeys where
yeah.
it was even tougher because there's no metric.
Hmm.
There's nothing to say you've had a good year. I mean, forget the revenue or the number,
Yeah.
but if our own metrics was, did I learn something new?
Hmm.
Did I do something that was difficult?
Hmm. Hmm.
uh,
Did I make a difference? Did I
and that's been
contribute?
our
Did I
metric,
build
right? As I'm
relationships? I
saying
mean,
it,
yeah, yeah,
when we've sat down almost every December and said
yeah,
what happened and what next,
yeah, yeah,
right? Just for the fun of it,
yeah.
because it was fun making that vision board
Yeah.
or whatever, right? But those are the questions we asked ourselves,
Yeah.
like, did I do something different?
Hmm. Hmm.
What is that new tinkering that I want
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
do
Hmm.
in the new year?
Hmm.
And hopefully it's something that two people can tinker together,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And
And
it's come with its own sort of, what do you say, breaks and challenges and wondering and confusion and
hmm,
loss. And small talk is work and play and build for us, right? And it has meant taking that one day every 10 days to sit down together and push each other to
Yeah,
do the things that we
yeah,
are avoiding.
yeah.
So it's not that we don't have a path, it's just the path is a little different. And I think let's start acknowledging and calling out that that is ambition as well.
Yeah.
As opposed to just, I think sometimes what happens is the moment we call it a privilege of choice, we shut that door for ourselves.
Hmm.
It was very nice to see someone reach out yesterday, not from the industry that I was hoping to hire from at all, but to say, hey, I have skills from that industry which are transferable. To
Hmm.
me, that's awareness first
Yeah.
and foremost. And I
Yeah.
think we need more of that, especially at
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
stage.
No, I think right now ambition feels like giving yourself the permission that I'm ambitious to get clarity. I'm
Hmm.
ambitious
Hmm.
to be more self aware, or
Yeah.
I'm ambitious to create choices
Yeah.
for myself,
Yeah.
right? So ambition is getting framed very differently for someone at my, like 25 years of being in the industry. It's getting framed by what I see a lot of youngsters doing so much more naturally,
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
not tied down by titles and
I think we
milestones,
are a
etc.
hyper individualistic society in
But
many ways,
tell
and I
me,
think it helps. It has its good. Yeah.
yeah, so that must also come with a lot of stress, right? Because
Yeah.
when when you are in that structured
Hmm.
linear path,
Hmm.
you don't have to worry too much about defining the path
Hmm.
because it's
Hmm. Hmm.
defined.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of hard work if you have
Hmm.
to define that path.
Yeah, yeah, and funnily enough, on the other side are some beautiful collaborations and friendships. I think that's what saves you from a lot of this. At least that's been my experience with the whole dive master journey. It's only been possible because so many people held that dream for me until I was ready to hold it myself.
Hmm.
And I think that's such a generous thing to do for anyone.
Hmm.
And it's meant people who've picked up my calls and spoken to me for hours and given me reassurance
Hmm.
and said, I was where you are and it'll all make sense. Don't
Hmm.
worry about it. And then you go, you do certain things, you get feedback, and you discover who you are in a different context. And somebody's held space for all of those things
Yeah.
as well, right? So I'm not saying that just because you're individualistic, take the lone wolf attitude, set
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
At some point, you will. And as someone who's historically not been very appreciative of community, I don't think when I was in my 20s, I saw the need or the value of
Hmm.
having community.
Hmm.
But today, I mean, it's oxygen to me. I would not survive without
Yeah.
all the people who do this with me.
So, what about, let's say, a 30-year-old today, right, who's saying, hey, I feel mid career
Hmm,
because
hmm,
I've been doing this for maybe 6, 7 years now, and I don't want to do it for more than another five, six. There must
hmm,
be something else,
hmm, hmm,
but I don't know what it is yet.
hmm,
Or how do I also do it? Like the stress that that individual
hmm,
may be
hmm,
feeling today,
hmm.
because also that I can do this only for another 5, 6 years because I'm sure after that this won't exist.
Exist, yeah. No, I think honestly it goes back to one of our earlier conversations on moonlighting.
Hmm.
um I think companies, and one of our guests said this, right? Maya said it when she said, if the culture is strong enough,
Hmm.
then why should I be concerned about individual behavior?
Hmm. Hmm.
Right. And I think we need to be able to stop seeing, or at least give active leverage for people to have those weeks in a day where they have those hours of going and doing something else. I really
Yeah.
think it's so important to, I don't know, there are friends who now, of course, they work in senior corporate roles and they have their own wardrobe pages, for example,
Huh.
because someone,
Huh.
10 people have told them you dress well
Correct.
and tell me
Correct.
more about it. So there is, opportunities for these parallel interests, but also organizations need to also start seeing the value of, the same skill set being applied on other projects, on other.
Huh. I'm thinking, forget the organization.
Hmm.
Like, like what?
Don't we all want to?
No, because as you said it, I was thinking that, oh, organization has to see the value. Like, what do I want them to do? They should see my Instagram reel of me, I don't know, playing the violin. I don't, but
No, I'm
like,
just.
but like, I'm saying, just play the violin. Like, just build
No, I
that.
don't want to know whether you're playing the violin or you're doing pottery, right? I
Hmm.
just want to know that you've given me the time you've given me. You don't owe me 13-hour days and commutes and, showing up at work with the same laptop you carry from home to take a
Hmm.
call. I think some of those things at least we should start being a little more mindful, right? Like I mean,
Mm,
if there was one privilege of my life, I will say that it's that I don't have to commute for work on a daily basis.
mm.
There are some of those little things that you can
Yeah.
push against, which honestly, it's high time, I feel.
But
It's
un-
okay. You don't have to see me play the violin if you don't want to, but just trust that I'm as an adult, I'm putting that time to good use. And finally, Bits used to do this, right? We had a zero attendance policy,
correct.
if you remember.
Yeah. Yeah.
Same thing.
That you do what you want in your own time, and
Just graduate, right? And that
also
also was
interestingly,
optional,
that
but
also no, but I'm just thinking back now. What did it really say that you do what you want? You've come here and declared that you're an adult,
hmm.
right? So you get to choose what you do with your time, but that has certain consequences
Yeah,
and costs.
as an
So
adult,
as an
right? There
adult,
is power, there's responsibility.
correct.
Assume both.
Correct. So if you are getting very average grades because you choose not to attend, that's on you.
Hmm.
You've made the choice, now
Now
live with
live with
it,
it.
and that will reflect somewhere along the way,
Yeah,
or it may not, but
yeah,
you're taking that chance,
yeah.
and that's also fine,
I think
right?
I see this as an extension of the same belief system that you are hiring people who have full agency of themselves. Try to behave that way.
Yeah. But sadly, the
People
workplace.
also have to, yeah, there's a whole conversation there in terms of do
Uh,
people understand? But
no, but also the workplace is saying come back, right? It's saying I'll force you to
hmm,
have that commute.
hmm, hmm,
I'll force you to show your face
hmm,
2 times, 3 times, and some large organizations are saying 5 times a week. I
yeah,
will force you to come. So though it's that group which will now say, but then where do I build that other?
yeah, yeah.
I know I have to, because I know that these same people can say you're redundant without batting an eyelid. So
Hmm,
if
hmm,
I've not built the other skill,
hmm, hmm.
if I've not been ambitious enough to do that and find the time, then I'll
What
be
do I do
stuck.
now? But honestly, tell me if someone were to approach you with a similar conundrum, what would you say? Because it's not easy, but at the same time, you do want to be respectful of that small universe of people that you do work with. You may not work with the whole organization, but
Mm.
your work still impacts, say, 10 people, 15 people that you're, part of as an ecosystem. At least they need to know that you're thinking on
Yeah,
these lines, but how do you start having some of those
yeah.
conversations?
No, I think those who manage, actually, we put a lot of load on managers. We keep
Hmm.
saying though, but you can even be a really good colleague
Hmm.
or a
Hmm.
peer
Hmm. Hmm.
who is understanding that we're all trying to build multiple things probably.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so if someone says that, hey, every day, like I'm putting in a full day's work, but
Hmm.
you know, generally I'm not reachable between 2 and 3 because of something.
Yeah.
Like either have the curiosity to just know it and appreciate it, or leave them alone,
Hmm, hmm, hmm. Yeah,
right? Like
makes
be that
sense.
good colleague also,
Makes sense.
helps a long way in all of these mid-career anxieties and pressures,
Hmm,
because it's not getting easier.
hmm.
The genuinely, like, cost of life
Yeah,
living,
yeah.
uh, the things we want, whether we need them or not, we
Hmm,
want them, like
hmm.
all of that, it's not diminishing for
Yeah, and
for
it's
sure.
not going to also, whether by choice or by design, we are only going to keep spending more.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah. So I think, so what did we finally agree mid-career is?
Mid career is, even if you are sitting down and you're feeling that little bit of an itch that needs to be scratched,
Yeah,
that yes, the all the early markers are now done, right? You've
yeah,
achieved the promotions, you've
yeah,
gotten, someone's clapped for you, you've gotten
yeah.
your raise, you've gotten. And then for every single human being who's paying attention comes a point in time where they're like, now what? And I think that,
I'm going to read this. I told you, I was listening to Matthew McConaughey on Simon Sinek this morning.
yeah,
And this one line that he started with, or kind of came out, and he said, so what he says was, my life has been more getting comfortable with what I was, getting comfortable today with what I was uncomfortable with yesterday, than changing what I was uncomfortable with.
yeah, yeah.
So, kind of,
The piece of coming home to yourself, I think it's massive. I mean, on a philosophical level, on an individual level, it's, I mean, if we can all achieve that, then I
yeah,
think,
I think what he's essentially saying is don't keep fighting it.
hmm, hmm,
And that whole episode is lovely to listen to. That just pay attention to yourself a lot more, that curiosity about self.
hmm,
What are your patterns and what makes you uncomfortable? How can I get more comfortable with them? How can I
Hmm.
live in discomfort for a while,
Hmm.
knowing what we both always say, that this is a phase,
Yeah,
wait it
yeah,
out,
yeah.
right?
So, as
And
much as it is real, I think one of the first fights we put up against it is to deny it, right? Like
yeah,
we want to somehow fix it, look away,
yeah,
numb it. I think we
yeah,
go through that, but it's there. It's going to stay. That discomfort has a purpose, and in fact, it has a very existential purpose. It
yeah,
is there to ensure your survival
yeah,
more often than not. And once you get there, know that it'll pass. I think
yeah,
that's the comfort we both take as well. We've been there so many times.
yeah,
It
yeah.
passes and it comes back also.
And it doesn't pass on its own, no? We are doing the work
Yeah,
still,
for sure. I think
right?
you're right.
I
There
think,
is still the chipping away is happening. And on days when we can't chip, we are still reaching out to that community that is supporting us and saying, it's
yeah,
okay, tomorrow is a new day.
yeah.
And we are continuing.
No, and I mean, it's very real. Like, let's say, even as a set of coaches or set of leadership development folks, we've the community that you build, you sit together and you say, hey, hasn't this quarter been dull? Like, how has it been
Hmm.
for you?
Yeah.
And then somebody will say, yeah, yeah, the whole the corporate cost cutting, and hence nobody's taking up coaching or whatever. Like, there's a
Hmm.
conversation, and then you lift each other, and
Yeah.
you say, okay, this too will pass, but you're still chipping away. You're
Yeah.
still trying to make attempts to find the work or meet the people you need to, or make the connects which may pay off in another quarter,
Yeah. Yeah.
or maybe even a year from then,
Yeah.
right? So that discomfort of not knowing when this cloud will lift.
Is offset to some extent by the doing of the little work. That's for
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
yeah,
You can sit and wallow, but it's better to just,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
So, no, I think I'm taking away a lot. Like, when we were just started even kind of thinking about this topic, that so much of my mindset was, oh, we keep saying mid career, and that's the person in their 40s, because you're going to work another 20, 30, 20 years plus. But I think that it's a huge shift for me also, and it'll help the conversations I'm having,
Hmm.
that it's a like a crossroad, and it's the middle of whatever you feel you're doing, right?
I
And
hear you.
it can
Yeah.
come at any stage.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. And maybe I wonder in some time from now, I think we'll appreciate this part of the journey a lot more, I feel, because this is where most of the work is happening.
hmm, hmm.
You can start, you can end the journey, but then the actual work is all happening in between those two points in time, right? Like I think
Correct.
I'm sure there's an episode in the future where we look back and say, wow, like so much happened.
True,
Yeah.
true. Yeah. So here's to all of us at mid career.
Yes.
So this week for Read, Watch, Listen, I have it's not very new, but the henna artist by Alka Joshi, written a few years ago, and it's part of a trilogy. But it's really beautiful writing. I think it's the kind of writing about India that I really love. From Chitra Banerjee to um, this, she seems like of that
Genre.
genre, right? A lady in 50s Jaipur who's actually a henna artist, and but that strong woman character who is navigating her own personal freedoms and the cost associated with some of the choices she makes, and what does freedom ultimately mean, and what does family and community and all of that mean, and even career in a way, because this is her career, and what does she want to do with it, how does she want to grow it. It's a business she's building. So if you look at it from all those lines, of extremely powerful narrative, and I'm looking forward to the next in
Yeah.
this, which is already, I mean, this is not new, so I've got two more in the trilogy waiting for me.
Wow. I think speaking of someone who's neither at the beginning nor for sure at the end of their journey, there's a recipe creator on YouTube that I stumbled upon recently who made a vegetarian mapo tofu. And he cuts up this semi firm tofu during the beginning of the episode and he's cut them into these beautiful cubes. And then he looks at his work and he says, beautiful, I did such a good job. And to me, I think we all need to start saying that a lot more for the little, hey, I brushed my teeth. I did such a good job. I think we all need these pats on our back. Please grow his YouTube channel a lot more. His name is Lionel Yang. He's a Sichuan Chinese cook on YouTube.
Oh, how cute. Okay, see you next week. Don't forget to like, comment, share, follow. Just do your thing, please. Bye.